heart of where innovation, money, and power collide in Silicon Valley and beyond. This is Bloomberg Technology with Caroline Hyde and Ed Ludlow.
I'm Ed Ludlow in San Francisco. Caroline Hyde's off. This is Bloomberg Technology. Coming up, Nvidia snaps its three-day rout that wiped $430 billion off its market cap. Full analysis ahead. Plus, Oracle warning of a financial impact to its business should TikTok be banned in the US. Details to come. And we go live to our Bloomberg Invest Summit, uniting leaders in asset management, banking, wealth, and private markets. Some key conversations to come. Let's get to financial markets, but the only thing that everyone is talking about is Nvidia. We have rebounded up around 3% in the Tuesday session, but it follows 3 straight days of declines, which total more than 10%, so therefore a technical correction, and also $430 billion of market cap shed. There's a lot of conversation narrative around valuation, but also the predictability of sales, how much money Nvidia is going to make. It's been really difficult, whether you're a sell-side analyst or even management, to correctly say how much revenue is going to come in, particularly with new generations of AI accelerator coming online. So from a market cap perspective, this is what we're supposed to look at. Nvidia down, that's the same chart. Market cap, the point is, it's below Apple, it's below Microsoft. So in that time period, Nvidia's gone from being the most valuable company in the world down a few pegs. Jump with me into my Bloomberg terminal and look at this chart. Because of all the anxiety around the sell-off, there is also some, I guess, sanguine thinking from a technical perspective. It's a stock that continues to trade pretty handsomely above its 50 and 100-day moving average. We're trading at $122 a share, and people see $115 a share, for those of you who follow the technicals, as a key level of resistance. Back from a short break, and I'm delighted to be reunited on set with Bloomberg's Ian King. I want to go back to that idea of how difficult it is to forecast sales, because over the weekend that's what we were all talking about. In part it's because since this all kicked off in 2023, every time they book revenue, it always comes in pretty handsomely above the midpoint of the guidance that Jensen gives. And it's difficult for the sell sides to say, well, what happens next?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. They are effectively overshooting expectations at every point. And there are a number of factors that play into that, including supply, including this kind of lumpiness of demand because they only have really a small number of large customers. So all of those things make it very difficult. But at a certain point, you know, things will even out. Supply will catch up with demand. These big customers will decide they've got enough infrastructure for the time being. And then the story changes, then other factors come in. And it's when do we reach that transition point?
As you heard, Ian, over in New York City, Bloomberg Invest Summit's underway. Some big names have been in attendance. And what is it do you think they've been talking about? It's Nvidia. Listen to this real quick.
I mean, if you look at the chart on Nvidia, you can barely see the correction. So, I mean, you know, on a percentage basis, it's down something like 10%, but you have to like peer really, really carefully at the chart to see that move. So I don't think it means anything. The people who own that stock know it's expensive, but they're buying into a story. And as long as the story is intact, like Nvidia is obviously intact, the story is going to continue.
Steve Eisman of The Big Short fame, on Bloomberg Surveillance earlier today, he talked about the story. The thing that I think investors are finding difficult is the story of new products coming online. So H200 is the kind of middle ground generation AI accelerator that's ramping right now. But Jensen told us May 22nd at earnings that Blackwell, which is the next generation accelerator, will also ship this year. And so working out where they're going and how much money they'll make from them is really tough.
It is. I mean, but that's really something that the guys who run the Excel spreadsheets should be doing a good job with. What I think is more difficult and what causes more concern is all of this infrastructure that's being put into place. Is it paying off? Is it making money? Or is it just being basically thrown at the wall to see what'll stick? And I think that's where, if there is a fundamental concern, we want to see, you know, AI translate into real revenue and real profit at some of these guys who are paying all of this money for all of this Nvidia gear.
Bloomberg's Ian King, who leads our semiconductor coverage at Bloomberg, Bloomberg, but for quite a long time also led our stocks team. We will continue talking about Nvidia. Bloomberg Invest is now underway in the heart of New York's financial district, where leaders in asset management, banking, wealth and private markets are connecting with world-class journalists led by Bloomberg's global finance correspondent, Sonali Basak, to track the future's greatest risks and opportunities. Now, moments ago, Philippe Lafont of Coatue was asked by David Rubenstein who would be the winner in AI, existing big tech companies or smaller startups. Listen to this.
At the beginning of these new waves, the new winners, 10 or 20 years out, some of them are existing companies and some of them are new. But the new ones that get big, there's maybe one a year, no more.
Delighted to say, as if by magic, Bloomberg's Sonali Basak joins us now with more. This is a really big event, and it's not surprising that whether you are in the private equity or private growth equity area of the market, or you're a hedge fund, or whatever it is you are, everyone seems to be talking about artificial intelligence.
It certainly does pervade a lot of the conversations we're having here today. And of course, Philippe Lafont is one of the perfect people to talk about artificial intelligence too. Earlier, as he was talking to David Rubenstein did ask him if he thinks there's a lot of hype around AI. And he really leaned into the opportunities that are happening in AI and really downplayed other types of opportunities, say quantum computing, for example. So what is he seeing in the AI opportunity? Some things got really wonky here. This idea of artificial brains being implanted in a robot that lives alongside humans, though that is probably about 15 years away, according to Coatue's Lafont. He's also seeing a lot of opportunity here in power. That is something that a lot of Wall Street is also watching, the banks, the hedge funds as well. And so certainly a more near-term opportunity. A little earlier also on the AI front, I would just say we also talked to Todd Boley of Eldridge Industries, and he talked about how it's changing media and entertainment. The reason I bring this all up is because you hear different types of investors, Ed, really talking about the AI opportunity, particularly in private markets as opposed to public markets, and the growth opportunity you're seeing there, as well as the governance structures that exist around companies like that that would allow for that kind of experimentation.
As regular viewers of this show know, I'm a long-standing Chelsea season ticket holder, a member of Chelsea Football Club, so I go watch the Todd Boley interview in full online. What's to come? You've put so much work into this, Sonali, along with our colleagues from the live events team. There are some big names to come in the next few hours.
There certainly are. Shortly, we'll be talking to Boaz Weinstein of Saba Capital, and I've got to say one reason that's interesting, Ed, is because we are just in the center of his dispute with BlackRock. We know that there are a couple of funds that he's targeting as activists in closed-end funds run by BlackRock. They have proxy voting that's going on in the last couple of weeks and in the next couple of weeks, so we don't really know yet if Saba is winning. We'll find out a little more what he thinks on stage. In the afternoon, we're going to have a couple private credit conversations as well. John Zito, I'm looking forward to Gary Gensler, the chairman of the SEC, of course, with Anne-Marie Hordern. We know the presidential debate is just days away, and hearing what Gensler has to say about what a change in administration could mean if there is a change in administration for the policies that he set forth today. Of course, a lot of people in tech and in general markets looking at the potential for an Ethereum ETF. There's some real potential for news later this afternoon.
Bloomberg's Sonali Basak, just an incredible lineup. Stay tuned. The Bloomberg Invest Summit is taking place all of today and tomorrow right there in New York City. Don't forget to tune in, check it out. We'll be right back. This is Bloomberg Technology. China's President Xi Jinping is urging the nation to step up innovation because other countries dominate certain key technologies. While he said China had, quote, made great progress in science, he added that original innovation ability is still relatively weak. Some key core technologies are controlled by others, and there is a shortage of top scientific and technological talents. Sticking with China, after initial reporting in May from Bloomberg that Huawei was secretly sponsoring a research competition run by Optica, a review of internal Optica corporate records shows the alliance ran far deeper than publicly known, blossoming over decades, even as US-China tensions over technology intensified. Let's bring in Bloomberg's Mike Shepard, who leads our coverage at the intersection of politics and technology. You know, the original Bloomberg report in May was astonishing, frankly. And the further details in this sort of a political environment and the headlines of the last 12 months are almost unbelievable. What have we learned?
Well, at first, let me commend you on the segue into this segment because it really highlights the importance of this story. It shows that China is really on the quest. It's on the hunt for the technological advances it needs to bolster its economy and gain that technological edge in key areas. And this shows one way it's been doing it. Huawei, which is it's an industrial champion in China, was not only sponsoring secretly this competition, but it was forging a much deeper relationship with Optica. And it was a two-way street. Optica is a century-old organization that whose members, 24,000 members worldwide, they do research in sensitive areas in light that apply to things like semiconductors that are essential to everything in the modern economy. So the consequences of this are significant. And Kate O'Keefe, whose initial report really broke the ground on this, and her latest reporting advanced the story further, she found that there was a whistleblower who flagged the risks that some of the work being done by U.S. scientists could be exported to China as a result of this.
I don't want to simplify it too much, but the basic idea is that the money came from Huawei, and in response to this reporting by Kate O'Keefe, who's had a great impact since joining Bloomberg, Optica's spokesperson basically says that group, Optica, is confident that they acted properly and in good faith. We're showing the response of Liz Rogan, who's the Optica CEO, on the screen, Mike. I guess what happens next, when stories like this develop, sometimes lawmakers take notice, sometimes regulators take notice.
Well, lawmakers have taken notice, and the top Republican and Democrat on the House Science Committee are looking into this. They expressed grave concern that U.S. scientific research could be exposed or even exported unwittingly to China as a result of a relationship like this. Now, the organization is saying that it acted in good faith, and to be fair, it did not violate any rules per se in allowing this competition to be funded anonymously. And yet the appearance was complicated, for the organization, but it was also a risk for the scientists who accepted the money without knowing that it came from Huawei. You see, many researchers in the U.S. have to disclose to other government and university funding agencies where their other sources of money are coming from. And if they don't tell those other funders, if they don't disclose that, hey, I am getting some money from Huawei, by the way, that could create a problem for them down the road as well.
Bloomberg's Mike Shepard, really appreciate your insight and reporting here on Bloomberg Technology. Thank you. We continue to talk about China. China-based ByteDance is facing a ban in the US in the form of TikTok. And Oracle is now warning that would adversely affect its revenues and profits. This is a story that caught my eye pretty late yesterday. I want to bring in Bloomberg intelligence analyst Anurag Rana, and you've basically constantly crunched the numbers on what the impact would be. But it's not straightforward. For our audience's benefit, Oracle was at the heart of TikTok's compromise by onshoring US user data in Oracle servers, basically. Now, if that's banned, what's the point of the Oracle relationship?
Yeah, it's hosting the actual application. So their infrastructure has been used to host that. So which is why if it goes away, they're not going to be getting that much revenue out. Now, they've never disclosed what the exact revenue amount is. But, I think one thing that's happening good on the Oracle side is there's a massive demand demand for their infrastructure as a service business. They are, helping out Microsoft there. They're helping out also Google. They just did a deal with them. So that business is growing over 40%. It's running at a run rate of about $2 billion a quarter right now. So annualized run rate of about $8 billion. So, it will be a setback, I would say, for a quarter or two, but they can make up that sales with other demand that's out there.
Stock's down a percentage point in the session in the moment, up more than 30% year to date. But what you said is interesting, right? We don't have a number. We don't know what the value of the relationship is. But you've covered this industry long enough, right? You know that if a company issues a statement saying this is substantive, material is the word, then it's worth looking into.
No, fair amount. I completely agree with you. But what I'm trying to say is that the demand for these kinds of work is so strong right now. So maybe it's a setback for Oracle for 6 months or 9 months, but they will make up that revenue from other sources. It's not as if it's lost forever, that particular revenue stream. In the defense of Oracle right now, they are really becoming the 4th largest cloud provider out there, right behind Amazon, Microsoft, and Google Cloud platform, because this kind of work is really the biggest thing in demand right now. Application software is struggling, but infrastructure software is doing well because of cloud resources.
And that was the focus of the research out this morning from you and Bloomberg Intelligence, narrowing the gap when it comes to cloud. Anurag Rana, Bloomberg Intelligence, thank you so much. Okay, staying with China, its spacecraft carrying samples collected on the far side of the moon returned to Earth today, marking an important milestone in China's path for further lunar exploration. The Chang'e 6 spacecraft landed in a grasslands region of Inner Mongolia and was the second mission by China to the more distant part of the moon, following the 2019 landing by Chang'e 4. No other country has sent a spacecraft to the far side, although NASA has plans to support missions there by a US spacecraft. Okay, it's time for Talking Tech. And first up, in yesterday's show, we discussed a Wall Street Journal report that Meta and Apple had held talks on an AI partnership. After the show, Bloomberg's Mark Gurman reported or clarified the real situation. Apple dismissed Meta's AI chatbot months ago. According to sources, the iPhone maker held brief discussions about using Meta's Llama chatbot, but ultimately decided not to move forward, citing privacy practices that weren't stringent enough. Plus, OpenAI issues a warning to China. According to local media reports, OpenAI says it will begin blocking access to tools and software in the region beginning in July. It's unclear what prompted the move, and while OpenAI is unofficially available in the country, many can access its features through VPNs. And US defense startup Anduril has secured $1.5 billion of new capital, boosting its valuation to about $14 billion. That's according to a report by The Information. The startup, backed by Peter Thiel, makes drones and autonomous weapons systems, and recently won a major contract to develop unmanned fighter jets for the US Air Force. Another story we're tracking, the health platform Function reached $53 million in its Series A funding round. The platform focuses on preventative approaches to help individuals manage their well-being. Delighted to say that Function's co-founder, Mark Hyman, joins us now. It's a significant sum of money. Congratulations, Mark, on the Series A. But actually, what caught my eye in the first instance is how many users you've onboarded and how big the wait list is relative to those onboarded. Just explain that to me.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. This is an incredible moment in medical history because we're seeing consumer-driven healthcare exploding, and we hit a nerve, a pain point, where people want access to their own data, their own biology. They want to look under the hood, not just rely on the healthcare system to provide access to their own health information. And so we've gotten 50,000 people as members in the first year in our beta, and 200,000 people on the wait list. And there's just a hunger for people to know about their health, to be empowered with the tools and have their own agency over their health using their data from their own body and having ownership of it, which right now is sort of held within the healthcare system in a very tight way that's hard to access for people, hard to understand, and we make it easy, accessible. And it's the first personalized health platform that allows you access to your own health data through initial 110 biomarkers for $499. It's about $15,000 worth of lab tests, and it provides deep insights from the world's scientific literature, from top knowledge experts, and provides guidance on what the likely things that are going on with you and what to do about them in order to empower you to change your behaviors and your lifestyle, which is really where more of the issue is.
Mark, just explain the basics of the technology. You know, every time we hear about a data-driven platform like this, we immediately start talking about artificial intelligence. But I think in this case, function has, pardon the expression, a more simple function. Just explain the basics.
Absolutely. You know, it's hard to believe, but medicine is still in the dark ages. It's very analog. We don't have pen and paper. We have electronic medical records, but it's essentially pen and paper put in a PDF or an electronic medical record with no relational content, with no understanding of the interactions between the data points, with no correlation. And so it's really a unique moment in history where we can gather your own data from the blood, from eventually biosensors and wearables, from your electronic records, from omics, and into your own health platform. That allows you to understand what's going on with your body. So it's a very simple process to sign up. It's 5 minutes. You go to functionhealth.com. You can sign up, and you get a scheduled appointment for your lab test at one of the 2,000 Quest laboratories. Your blood's drawn. It takes about 15 minutes. It's frictionless. You don't have to go through insurance or doctor. It gets away from the paternalistic healthcare system and allows people to be agents of their own health and the CEO of their own health, which I think is what we all need to be, given the epidemic of chronic disease that's now facing.
Mark, I just want to jump in on that insurance point. As you can tell, I come from the United Kingdom, where the healthcare system is very different. 6 years in, I'm used to the insurance-based system here. How does your business model work within the confines of that system?
Well, it's very interesting because people are going outside the system to actually learn more about their health, to get data about their health, whether it's home testing, whether it's wearables. Now this is accessible to your blood test, and you don't have to go through insurance. It's $499 a year. It's $1.37 a day, which is less than your Dunkin' Donuts cup of coffee. And it allows you to have deep insights about your health across the spectrum of your health, from nutrition to hormone to metabolic health to toxins to cardiovascular risk to all your biomarkers that relate to your overall well-being. And it's something that was never accessible to people before. And so when you go through your doctor insurance, there's a big resistance, a firewall where they say, no, you don't need these tests, or you don't need that test, or they just want these small number of tests. But it's better to look at things early on in the trajectory of disease. And we've seen, just by this simple approach, we've saved lives. One man was in his 40s, 44 years old, did the panel, found out he had prostate cancer, was able to treat it early, get cured, and was able to then live on a healthy life with his young kids, as opposed to being at risk for death. So I think we are seeing incredible uptake. We're seeing incredible results from the users and incredible stories of lives changed. And really, this is all about ending suffering.
Mark Hyman, co-founder of Function Health, thank you for joining us on the program. Now, coming up, we're going to be joined by the CEO of Etch, Gavin Iberti, on how the startup plans to take on Nvidia. That's coming up next. A quick look at shares of Microsoft. The European Commission has issued it a statement of objections, alleging that Microsoft's Teams and Office 365 fell foul of the EU's competition rules. The stock up 0.4%, a story we'll dig into. This is Bloomberg Technology. Welcome back to Bloomberg Technology. Ed Ludlow in San Francisco. Let's take a quick look at the markets. Broadly speaking, US equities are higher than NASDAQ 100, up a full percentage point. A big part of that story, of course, is Nvidia, now up 5% in this session, is the rebound from that technical correction. 3 straight days of declines exceeding 10% until now. And there's no real news flow around Nvidia. This is about some serious gains. It was about a 43% jump from May 22nd when Nvidia reported earnings. And the conversation around how hard it is to predict sales growth, because you're jumping from H100 to H200. Blackwell will start shipping at the end of the year, and the street is basically saying, we can't keep up with management's forecasts. What's going on? I also take a quick look at Bitcoin. Trades 24/7. We focused on it big time in yesterday's show, but we're back nearer to $62,000 per token, noting that there have been pretty substantive outflows from dedicated Bitcoin spot ETFs. I want to linger on the AI accelerator market for a moment. Etch is a young AI chip company making a big bet on AI. They spent the past 2 years building Sohu, the world's first specialized AI chip for transformers, or so they claim. And that bet is paying off. The company just nabbed grabbed a $120 million Series A round led by primary venture partners and Positive Sum Ventures. Let's bring in Gavin Uberti, one of the company's 2 co-founders and its CEO. Okay, let's go back to basics on this. There were a lot of big claims in that introduction. Your main point is that the specifically designed chip for the development of transformers or models is better than the GPU. But what is it that you're building? What is Sohu?
Well, Sohu is a kind of AI chip that is only able to do one very specific thing. An accelerator from Nvidia or Google is flexible. It can be programmed to run many different kinds of AI models, like convolutional networks, LSTMs, or transformers.
Right.
Our chips are different. They are only able to run this one very narrow class of model, which we call transformers. But when running these kinds of models, they are vastly more performant, more than 20 times higher throughput than 8 H100s.
So what is it from an intellectual property standpoint or a technology standpoint unique to Etch that allows for that? What is the secret sauce behind Sohu that makes it any different from a performance perspective or a design perspective relative to H100, H200?
Well, we're able to burn the transformer algorithm into the chip. We're building our own silicon and our own servers. And this enables us to get more than 20 times higher throughput in terms of output words per second from models like ChatGPT or Llama. But you're also able to get much better latency numbers. If you measure the time to the first token, we can cut that by a factor of 20 as well.
You told my colleague, Paul Zaveri, that you think Etch can be the world's biggest company. That's quite a claim to make. Outline the pathway to that for me.
Well, we are taking a bet. Unlike every other company in the market, our chips can only run transformers. So if transformers change dramatically or go away, then we'll be in a bad place. But if we're right, and transformers keep being the dominant way that AI models work, will be the most performant chip on the market by an order of magnitude.
So let's talk about who your target customer is, because transformers, or let's use another term, large language model in the natural language context, for example.
Let's say a misconception, actually.
We'll fix the misconception for me.
Transformers used to be for just large language models. Other kinds of models, like image generators and video generators, used to be what's called UNets. But that's changed. Over the past year, it's turned out that transformers work better than other kinds of AI models for generating images and videos too. I don't know if you saw Sora from OpenAI, but that's a transformer as well, powered by the same underlying kind of model as ChatGPT.
But the point I'd like to get to with regards to who your customers or potential customers would be is that some transformers have parameters in the hundreds of billions. Sora may be a good example of that. What's happening now in AI development is more modest ambitions. Lots of companies working on models with a much lower scale in terms of parameters. Where do you want to go?
We are selling to the big transformer models. We have tens of millions of pre-orders from the customers you'd expect. But I expect that we are going to get much, much bigger AI models. The way we've gone from GPT-2 in 2019 to GPT-4 today is not by inventing new algorithms. The transformer algorithm is almost the same. Instead, we have made the models far bigger. It's no longer 1.5 billion parameters like GPT-2. It's 1.8 trillion.
In the tens or hundreds of billions or trillions of parameters.
1.8 trillion for GPT-4.
Let me ask you this, though. $120 million Series A, it seems like an eye-watering sum of money, but we've learned that this is a capital-intensive enterprise from an R&D perspective, a talent perspective. One thing that was of interest to me and wanting you to come on the show is that your contract manufacturing partner is TSMC. And not only TSMC, but their emerging business group, where they basically say, okay, you're just starting out, but we can help you to scale this product. What's that experience been like?
TSMC is a pleasure to work with. Working on their 4-nanometer node, one of their state-of-the-art processes, same one that Nvidia is making their Blackwell GPUs on. And we're building a reticle-sized die, so a very big chip. That is a complicated kind of chip to build.
Well, in Blackwell's case, they had to literally split it in two.
That's a great point. That for Blackwell, normally what happens in chips is as you move from generation to generation, you move to a more advanced kind of chip technology. So from the A100 to the H100, they moved from 7 nanometer to 5 nanometer. But that's changed. They couldn't move to the new technology for the Blackwell chips. And as a result, they had to put two of them together. And if you look at the progress of GPUs over the past 4 or 5 years, they haven't gotten better, they've just gotten bigger. Performance per area has stayed constant.
Gavin, you are an incredibly confident founder, co-founder, CEO. It's a pleasure to have you on the program. And you're clearly ambitious. The difference between Nvidia and Etch is Nvidia is producing at volume. You have $120 million in the bank now. What do you need to use that cash for? And how capital intensive is the process of scaling this product, even if you have a partner like TSMC?
This is a capital intensive business. A majority of our Series A is going to go into building these products and scaling up the business. That is where the money goes. And I think the big difference too is, again, we are very specialized. That we are inherently taking a bet on the transformer architecture. A lot of folks in the industry will say that just like transformers were invented, there could be something else on the horizon that'll put us out of business. And we are gambling that's not the case.
Just very quickly, we just have 10 seconds. Have you shown Jensen your product?
I imagine Jensen's heard of us by now.
Gavin Iberti, co-founder and CEO of Etch. A lot of fighting talk, a lot of confidence. Thank you for joining us on the program. Okay, back to the story we were discussing earlier. OpenAI has warned developers in China it will begin blocking their access to its tools and software from July. That's according to local media reports, suggesting the ChatGPT creators taking a more active stance to bar users from nations where it doesn't offer services. Bloomberg's Jackie Davalos, leading the AI beat, joins me out of DC. This is really interesting because it's kind of an old school tech thing that a lot of the access to OpenAI in China was through VPN, which is what people do to stream things in different places. But give me more details in this story.
Well, what we know, Ed, is that Chinese developers will have this access cut off starting in July, as you mentioned. This really originated through local media reporting, which cited screenshots that had this OpenAI memo to developers saying they were going to have this access removed. OpenAI has now confirmed the decision to Bloomberg News earlier this morning that it is, in fact, taking, quote, additional steps to block API traffic from regions where we do not support access to OpenAI's services. Now, this is not the first time that China has come against the crosshairs of American tech companies and even regulators here and U.S. officials who believe that China is using this technology for more nefarious purposes. Now, OpenAI really started ratcheting it up its own actions against who it believes is bad actors and using its technology perhaps to manipulate public opinion, for example. Remember that report in May, Ed, that said Russia, China, Iran, and Israel were using OpenAI to manipulate public opinion. So you really see these actions really starting to take shape here.
There's two sides to the story, right? There's the use of the technology by malicious actors or unauthorized actors, and also, I think, a data access point. But there's also a competition side of the story, right? You have domestic champions in China like Baidu that are building large language models, big large language models to support generative AI technology. Give me that side of the story.
Well, they were quick to pounce on the fact that now there's this wide swath of developers who need AI technology to turn to. And so what some of these local reports were saying is that they started appealing to developers and saying, hey, come switch to our tech. Really goes to show that there is this, not just this technology battle, but there's a need to really start ramping up its own internal AI capabilities. This is exactly what lawmakers here in in Washington, Ed, are concerned about, that AI is really ramping up their efforts, not just to have AI play a role in its economic capabilities, but military. And so, of course, this isn't just about what consumers have access to, but how it can be used against kind of national security. And this is exactly where we're seeing here in Washington actions on behalf of, for example, the Treasury Department imposing rules to curb investment that would support AI investment in some of these areas, and also, of course, curbs on chip exports. We're really starting to see both of these things really come together.
I think that what they're doing from a technical standpoint, I'm just reiterating what an OpenAI spokesperson told us, is that they are taking additional steps to block API traffic. I still find it astonishing that the origin of this story is people being able to access OpenAI from China through VPN. Just give me a little bit more on what you just said about the DC side of this. Joe Biden, President Biden, has some policy towards restricting Chinese products entering the United States, or tariffs, and the Treasury Department you mentioned as well. Are we expecting a sort of expansion of that activity?
That's a key question. I think if there's one area where lawmakers here in Washington have really come together, it's around the national security argument that China has capabilities in artificial intelligence and it will continue to bolster them. Now, you saw this with TikTok, really the concern that Chinese influence was coming through somehow in TikTok and influencing public opinion here through that tech. But then you look at artificial intelligence and what can be done with drones, for example, really things on the battlefield. This is where a lot of that concern is coming from. And so, of course, you're seeing chip manufacturing as kind of the hallmark example for the Biden administration really starting to take the lead here. It's all part of this broader strategy to really undercut Beijing's efforts to have AI kind of bolster its military capabilities.
Bloomberg's Jackie Davalos. This is a pretty fast developing story. Grateful for you keeping us honest on it out of Washington, D.C. Thank you. This is Bloomberg Technology.